of decision, okay? We are at an impasse of a point of decision with everything that's going on with this COVID-19, sheltering in place, moving into phase 3 here. And during times like this, when economies shrink, right, and as they start to grow again, is when most startups or big companies blow up, okay? And that is because they reached a point of decision and they were forced to have to think and do things differently than what they did before. So last year, I made a commitment to invest in myself every single quarter and attend an event, a workshop, conference, something that was going to help me continue to grow. And I would say it was probably the best professional decision that I've ever made, as last year I attended an event every single quarter. And what it did is it helped me to continue to stay engaged and forward focused. Without that, in the past, I found myself getting stuck in the rut of just everyday life that goes on. And by continuing to connect with bigger thinkers, thought leaders out there, Live to Lead, the Global Leadership Summit, Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Brad Sugars, all kinds of great events where they're providing content, help me to continue to stay focused forward. And I've been recently reading a book. It's called It Takes What It Takes, and it was by Trevor Moawad. And Trevor Moawad, I don't know his exact title, but he's basically works with high-level athletes and top executives on their mindset and thinking. And he worked with a gentleman named Fred Taylor. For those of you who don't know Fred Taylor was a running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars and a couple other teams in the NFL. And he came out of college and he was very highly sought after prospect. And he was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars his first year in the NFL. He had a breakout season, over 1,200 yards rushing, was just set to be the next greatest thing. In the next 3 seasons, Fred was plagued by injuries, and he actually got the nickname Fragile Fred. And this totally destroyed Fred. He hated being called Fragile Fred, and he wanted to have a long, prosperous career. And he was working with Trevor, but it was a gentleman, another gentleman in the NFL, I believe it was Roy Williams, who was a safety with the Dallas Cowboys, who had been in the NFL for a while. And Roy told him, he goes, my greatest resource is my body, because my body is how I bring in income to support my lifestyle and support my family. And he goes, it's up to me to make sure that I'm taking care of my body as best that I absolutely can, so that I can continue to bring in that income like I need to. Long story short, Fred Taylor that reached a point of decision on that day that he decided that he was going to change his lifestyle so that he could have a long NFL career. And he was doing all the things that he should have been doing from day one that nobody else was doing. And I'm sure many of you can think on 2 hands a list of players that have been washed out of the NFL because they've made poor decisions and choices and not the right choice to have a successful career, right? Just go back to all the Bears draft picks. It's been embarrassing. That's why we gave them all away. Anyway, so going back to the conference and events that I started on, long story short, Fred Taylor ended up playing over 13 seasons, having a very accomplished career by making that decision to change, not staying out late, putting the right stuff in his body, training properly, etc. But going back to what I started with and talking about the events and the conferences, I had planned on my calendar this year, every quarter, to do that exact same thing again. And what happened? COVID-19, right? COVID-19 happened and everything was shut down and changed. So all these conferences that I was scheduled to go to have been canceled. So I'm like, well, now what? Can I read more books? Sure. I'm already reading 50-some books a year. So it's like, how do I continue to stay engaged? Well, Rachel Hollis, who I got to see satellite broadcast live through the Live to Lead event, which I highly encourage you to attend. You just got to talk to our man Marvin Bembry here, and he'll make sure that he gets you hooked up for it. But Rachel puts on an event every single year called the Rise events. And Rachel, for those of you who don't know her, is a huge influencer, especially in the women's space. And she had some huge names on there like John Maxwell, Ed Mylett, and others. So I was like, let's do this. So she had a decision. How she brings in the majority of her revenue is through speaking engagement. And Rachel speaks in front of thousands and thousands of people and is just electric on the stage. She builds and feeds off the energy of the group, which is absolutely amazing. She's never done a virtual event before, and it was a full day event, going to be done on Zoom. And she had the decision, does she cancel all of her events, or does she move forward with something she doesn't know? And she decided, based on where she's at, she had to do something, and she took action, and she said, we're going to do it online. But there was some really powerful things that I observed and noticed by participating in this event that I want to share with all of you. Because I'm sure as you're connecting with people online or you're thinking about doing an event online, there's some things we got to keep in the back of our minds that are different than if you were doing it in person. So Rachel's presentation, she tweaked it a little bit, but the adjustments she made didn't come across well virtually, right? She was doing a lot of the same stuff to try to build energy and get people going, and it just didn't go through online very well at all. And that's okay, because I give her props for trying it, right? She was at a decision, I got to make some income, I got to bring it into my family. I could do nothing and wait for this to come out, or we can try this. And knowing Rachel, she's going to make some crazy awesome adjustments and be better next time. But as Ed Mylett said in there, he goes, uncertainty is a true blessing. Uncertainty is a blessing. And the reason it's a blessing is because it forces us to have to figure things out and do some things we might have never tried or done before. And uncertain times call for uncertain measures, right? So we have to try to build that certainty in to figure out what it is that we're looking to do. On the flip side, Ed Mylett, who's one of my favorite speakers, was on the show. So Rachel talked for about an hour and a half, which was a really long time. And she had the course of 8 speakers, and it was over the course of the day. Now, Marie and I broke that up. We watched it, a couple speakers every single night. And what I found is that while watching it at home on my couch with food and drink next to me, I was almost too comfortable. It was really hard for me to stay engaged for the entire time the speaker was talking. And I share that with you because you gotta put yourself in the shoes of who is digesting and receiving your information. When I'm in a group of people and I'm in a professional setting at a table with a professional group of people, right, I'm going to be more engaged because the only thing I have to do is look at this big screen for the course of 8 hours a day. But I foresee in the future events being done online very differently. So much so that instead of it being one day all crammed in there, it could be over the course of an entire week, and it's a half an hour to an hour every single day of how you're receiving content. And it gives me the opportunity to engage with it at my leisure in a setting where I'm going to get that information best. Ed Mylett was also one of the speakers on there. Now, he's been doing podcasts, he's been on YouTube, he's been a professional speaker for a really long time. Ed delivered 3 pages worth of notes that I took in 20 minutes of conversation. He was absolutely amazing of how he delivered his presentation. And it's because he has been in a setting and practicing that craft for a period of time, and it related really, really well to the audience. And it wasn't just me who took a lot of notes. The whole Rise Nation kept pinging everything online about how amazing his presentation was. But this is what these are some of the things that I noted that Ed did that Rachel and some of the other speakers didn't. His message was concise. He got his point across in 20 minutes. The level of detail that he shared in his stories made me feel like I was present there with him in that story. And he also used power language and power phrases. Listen up. If you're going to take anything away, it should be this. Are you getting this? Right? Those apply to in-person, but they also apply to online really, really well as well. So if you can keep your message condensed, concise, power language, it's really going to keep everybody engaged throughout the entire time you're talking. Now, I'm not perfect at this. I'm continuing to work and practice my craft as well. But these are things that we can learn from other thought leaders and professionals out there that they're doing that are successful. And I know, like all of you, right, I want you to reach a point of decision with this COVID-19, right, where you say, I'm going to try something new, make a pivot or a change that is, I'm better off because of it. I don't want you to continue down the path you're on, because I promise you the world that we knew before this is going to be different. Yeah. And you have the opportunity right now to change course and path from what you were on. But if you're just sitting back and waiting for things to get back to normal, it's going to be a long, bumpy road. And I want all of you to reach the desired success that you want by continuing to evolve and adapt.
Awesome. Thank you, Cody. Great job. Let's give him a virtual applaud. Great job. Thank you. Great point of decision. I got a whole page of notes, so I'm glad you reminded us to take notes, Cody. That was awesome. I would have just said about that. Hey, Kristen, so we're going to have people jump into a Zoom room. We're going to be in breakout rooms for about 10 minutes, so watch the time. And then I want you to practice your smoothie. What's your offering? And just ask the question, who do you want people writing checks? You know, who's going to be writing you checks, and how can you tell the people in your Zoom room that they're going to be writing you checks? Come back. I'm going to close out. I'm going to do some extra innings here for you afterwards for those that want to stick around. I'm going to be talking about looking good. And so, Kristen, take us to our breakout rooms, and then we'll come back exactly at 8:30.
I'm so glad